Well, it's real bad, but I do find it funny that Loki and Yamato do end up being very similar, and it does make me think that if they do both join the crew, like I've been talking about for a while now, that they will develop a friendship. Because what's so interesting about Loki is that he's just a bit more world renowned than Yamato because he was given a bounty and he actually has been out in the world doing things and he actually did have a pirate crew. However, Yamato did not have that, but they both are mythical zone users. Both powers in question, the Akuchi no Mikami and the Nidhogg, are both very deity coded mythical zones. Yamato has the honor of being the first deity mythical Zoan in the series because Kaido tells us that the Akuchi no Mikami is the guardian deity of Wano. And from all the talk surrounding the Nidhogg, it seems like it's a lesser deity that's supposed to foretell the coming of Nika from all the different lore drops we've been getting from Emu and Jarl. So that's a very interesting thing they have in common. Both of these powers have a very funny history with their users as well, because from all that we know about the Beast Pirates, it's very likely that Hanafuda nabbed the dog fruit model Akuchi no Mikami from somewhere, and then Yamato took it upon herself to eat it under Kaido's nose. In a very similar situation in which Loki's father too was involved, Loki's father urged him to eat the dragon fruit mythical model Nidhogg, but in doing so, he needed to be proven worthy by its protector, Ragnar. So it is funny that the two situations contrast with one another. One was destined to eat it and was proclaimed worthy, while the other just stole a power that was originally stolen from somewhere else, presumably. But in talking about that, what's also quite interesting about the abilities is that both abilities were suppressed by Sea Stone for a considerable amount of time, and both users were fixed in a spot for a considerable amount of time. Because, of course, you know, Yamato had Sea Stone cuffs on her, placed on her by Kaido, but based on the weirdness of the cuffs, they probably weren't 100% Sea Stone, just enough Sea Stone to suppress her abilities, which is even more likely because the Sea Stone cuffs could be broken by Haki, which Sea Stone usually is pretty dense, nearly indestructible, which is why with Loki, they needed a key in order to free him. And both characters are, coincidentally, freed by Luffy himself. So that's pretty cool. But in talking about the Sea Stone, what's interesting about this is that both of them, in a weird way, are related to Shanks, because Shanks was the one who defeated Loki, probably saving him from himself, because going on a one-man mission against the world government is not well advised. But with Yamato, it's interesting because Shanks does stop Kaido from going to the War of the Best, the battle between the Whitebeard pirates and Marineford. So it's funny that you could say that Yamato and Loki do have a weird relationship with Shanks. But in talking about Shanks, two things are very funny. One, both their fathers technically know Shanks because Harold too, in trying to be a holy knight, did meet Shanks like Kaido met Shanks. But also, Yamato has some almost direct involvement with Shanks because it was Shanks who saved Yamato and the Scabbards from Green Bull due to his big hockey burst scaring Green Bull off. So in that way, there's a lot of relation here. But going back to Loki, it's very funny that Loki ends up being tortured a bit by Shanks's older twin, Thiggerlin Shamrock. And it's this torturing that gives us a big lore drop as to how Shamrock is related to Shanks. So I find that funny that both of them and their fathers are involved with these two brothers in a variety of ways. And I think that's just very interesting, and they parallel very nicely in that way. But to continue, it's also quite interesting that both of them are seen as royals because, of course, Loki is the Prince of Elbaf and Yamato is regarded as the Oni princess or the ogre princess. But what's funny in how these two contrast is that Kaido's people, Kaido's underlings meaning, are very respectful of Yamato. They love Yamato. But on the flip, everybody has always hated Loki, once as a nuisance and then as a patricidal prince, because they were under the impression that he killed his father, Harold, for no good reason. However, that has been patched up in the narrative, which is also another funny parallel because, of course, you know, Yamato technically was a part of the raiding party, or ended up being a part of the raiding party that did finish off her father, Kaido. So you could say too that both of them have been involved with their father's deaths in one way or another, but they have the opposite reception to the people that they kind of governed over, or their fathers governed over. Another interesting parallel is that both of them are proficient in using blunt weapons. Yamato uses a club and Loki uses his hammer. However, in using these two weapons, both of them have a weird electrical theme, because Yamato's signature attack that she got from her father, called Thunderclap 8 Trigrams, is something that is lightning themed, even though it doesn't seem to be able to produce actual lightning. This is different in Loki's case because his hammer Ragnir, most likely due to the dull fruit that it has, which is a Ratatasker fruit, or perhaps due to the composition of the hammer itself, is able to summon lightning from the sky. So in both ways, you could say that their fighting styles do have an electrical theme, one figurative and one literal. Now, in talking about the bloodlines of the two, I think something special is going to happen here, because we know Loki is special because of his weird demon eyes, right? But Yamato could be special as well, because like I mentioned in multiple videos now, it's very likely that Kaido's bloodline has to mean something, because it's very peculiar that Yamato and Kaido are so strong, and yet no other Oni character seems to have this level of strength and durability. So it's very likely that they are from a very treasured bloodline like Loki is, which would be very interesting if the two end up on the same crew, meaning the Straw Hats. But in addition to what has been going on for quite a bit now since Throne of Bark, is that Oni characters, or characters who are presumed to be Onis, seem to have some sort of a special relationship with ancient giants in one way or another. We have Moria, who might be an Oni, and he introduced us to our first ancient giant in Oars. But then we have Kaido, whom is an Oni, and employed several weird ancient giants called the Numbers, whom are creations of Vegapunk in some way or another. And then we have Yamato specifically hitting up a friendship with Fuga, whom was a member of the Numbers faction under Kaido. So this has always persisted since the concept was introduced, so it's very likely that this will continue with Loki and Yamato if they do end up being both members of the Straw Hat Pirates. With that being said, if you are liking the video so far, click the like button. And if you want to see more from me, hit the subscribe button, followed by that bell so you never miss a video. In addition, if you could, hit the hype button because it really does help. With that being said, give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede Works.